Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live presentation titled OPC Data Conversion. My name is Randy, and I'm the presenter today. In this webinar on OPC Data Conversion, we're going to talk about the actual problem that needs to be solved. We'll talk about the solution, which includes both a half tunnel and a full tunnel. And I'll actually show you the data conversion itself, and last, I will show you how to get the webinar recording. Spoiler alert, you're going to get an email. So let's see what's going on here. So OPC UA was released back in 2008, so 12 years ago. And a lot of new applications are already supporting OPC UA. A lot of existing applications support OPC Classic. And the big problem is that OPC UA and OPC Classic don't talk to each other directly. So the problem is now that companies have both old and new applications. Some speak OPC UA, some speak OPC DA, and they don't necessarily communicate with each other. So how exactly are we going to get that connection? And that is what this particular webinar is about. How do you get that communication? Now remember, you begin with a controller. It's got an OPC server. Maybe it's embedded. Maybe it's separate. You need to connect to an OPC application on top. What we're talking about here is how do we get that connection right here? So that's a converter from OPC UA to DA or DA to UA, and that's what we'll talk about here. So in order to do that, we need to support OPC UA. We also need to support OPC Classic. Of course, we need to support all the specifications within them, data access, historical data access, and so on. We shouldn't have to care whether we're connecting to 32 or a 64-bit application. So you need support for all of these and receive all the security profiles for DCOM, for TCP/IP, for HTTP, HTTP secure, and so on. And connect to both local and remote service. Of course, everything needs to run as a Windows service in either a half tunnel or a full tunnel configuration. So that's what we'll talk about here. Now, the converter. In this case, we're going to be using OPC Expert, and we start out with, so what I'm showing you here is what's inside the converter. So everything here is inside the converter. So we begin with an OPC client connection supporting both OPC DA and UA, which goes into an intelligent engine. That goes then into an OPC DA server and a UA server. So that's really the basis of what's going on here, meaning you can take data in with OPC UA and bring it out with OPC DA, or bring data in with OPC DA and send it out with OPC UA, or go this way, in with UA, out with a DA client, just like this. But once the data is inside the intelligent engine, well, then you can send it out to Excel. So, for example, so you can look at the real-time data in Excel or store it in Excel format data files, or send the data to SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server. In fact, the next webinar will be on OPC to Microsoft SQL Server, or if you wanted in XML files or CSV files. You can also send data out so that it goes into Excel RTD or whatever way, or bring it in with different mechanisms. But in this particular webinar, we're talking about this portion right here, UA in, DA out, or DA in, UA out. So you can go any which one of any which way that you see here for the combination. So that's what we'll talk about here. Now, to get this actually working, I'll show you the half tunnel and the full tunnel. In this case, we've got a server on the right, and it supports only OPC UA. And the question is, what happens when you have a DA application? So DA application needing to connect to a UA server, how do you do that? Well, you have the converter here. It brings in OPC UA. So OPC UA comes in over the network, and it gets converted to OPC DA locally. That's a half tunnel. We can do the other half just like this. So DA locally, UA on the network. So it's if this is an OPC DA server, This converter here is a DA client and sends everything out with UA as a UA server, so that this client here, which is a UA only client, can pick it up. And of course, there's a full tunnel. So in this case, it's one half of the tunnel and the other half. It's a full tunnel, just like this. So DA in, UA out, UA in, DA out. So in this case, it's a DA client and a DA server. If for some reason you can't get them connected on the network, this tunnel will actually get them connected to each other. So this is what we'll take a look at, is the half tunnel and the full tunnel connections. Now, please, I see already some questions coming in. Please keep them coming. I will answer them as we move along in the webinar. And those that I don't get to in the webinar itself, I'll answer afterwards. So again, what we're talking about here is a standard. So everything is OPC UA or OPC DA. Everything is a standard. Very easy. For the network communication, it's only one port. So that's really the only thing that you need to open in your firewall, just on the server side, by the way, not on the client side. And it's very, very secure. It's using OPC UA security. Of course, it runs as a Windows service. So we're talking about these guys here. This one, this one, this one, this one, running as a Windows service, which means you get an automatic startup from Windows, uses the system account locally, and it's monitored by Windows. So if anything stops, Windows starts it back up. And as a result, you get a very, very reliable communication mechanism with complete auto recovery. And auto recovery from network faults, for example, automatically recovers. Application faults, it automatically reconnects. And if you're losing data with automatic store and forward, you've got that as well. So again, what this enables you to do is to have OPC DA and OPC UA on the other side. And you can get, using this converter, it just converts from one to the other. Whether you have an OPC UA client or UA server, or DA client or DA server, it will make that conversion. Now, again, data conversion, as I said, from UA to DA, DA to UA. And what it does is becomes an application normalizer as well. So sometimes you have an OPC UA server. It doesn't behave very well. So that's okay. You can use this converter, brings in OPC UA, sends out OPC UA. So it's actually UA to UA, and it normalizes applications to add maybe functionality that you're missing, to maybe make an application that's misbehaving, make it into a normalized application that doesn't misbehave anymore. And it improves the existing functions within your applications. Of course, it can also be a connection troubleshooter. If you have a problem with the connection, this converter will actually log communication. It will log failures. If you have network failures, application failures, it'll actually log all of these in its log file. So let's do a demonstration, and I'll show you how this stuff actually works. So again, what I'll begin with is a DA client connecting to a UA server. And then I'll show you a UA client connecting to a DA server. So for the DA client, I'm going to be using OPC Quick Client from Kepware. OPC Quick Client is a free application, free OPC client made by Kepware. They also make OPC servers, and they've got very nice products. And we'll be using their OPC Quick Client to take a look at OPC DA data. OPC Quick Client only supports OPC DA. So I have a couple of computers here. There's one computer, and there's the other. This is OPC 02. This is OPC 01. And there is Quick Client. So again, this is only this client only supports OPC DA. So what I want to show you here, I'm going to be running OPC Quick Client. We'll bring the computer back up to normal in just a bit. So that's this one right here. I'm not running OPC Expert yet. Here is a server. Now, first, what I want to show you is locally, I have 3 OPC servers, 1, 2, and 3. So 3 OPC servers is what it found locally. When we go remote, so now I'm trying to find OPC 02. That's this computer right here. So when we try to find it on the network, there's nothing there. As you can see, the network browsing isn't working. Maybe it's NetBIOS that's not enabled. Maybe the Active Directory isn't enabled. Maybe it's a firewall. I don't know, but it's not working. So for any one of various reasons, we can't even find the machine, never mind get into it. So again, what we see are 3 local OPC servers. Well, let's put in this converter right here to help fix things. So I'll just run OPC Expert. Here we go. So I'm running OPC Expert. And let's make this a little bigger so I can see what's going on. We'll open up this computer. And what we don't find, we're looking at the local service. Again, these are the 3 servers. So there's Kepware, there's a Matricon server, and the Iconic server right here. So those 3, these blue ones are OPC DA servers. You can see it says DA. And there's OPC UA. So there are 2 OPC UA servers here. Now, if we go and browse the entire network, of course, it finds nothing. So I'll add a computer, OPC 02. Click OK. And let's go open it up. So when we go and look and find OPC 02, we're going to find some UA servers. Now, what I don't see here is the UA sample server because I didn't run it yet. So this will be my server. This is coming from the OPC Foundation. So I'll run this one just in case you thought that there are any tricks. So there is the UA server. So you can see it's running. Just get rid of it on the screen here. And now we'll rebrowse the remote computer. And remember, that's a server that I want OPC Quick Client to get to. OPC Quick Client, again, can't get there for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is that server is, well, we don't see the PC at all on the network. We don't see OPC 02 at all on the network. Reason number 2 is this server over here is an OPC UA server, so OPC Quick Client would not be able to connect. So to get this connection going, all I do, right-click, add mimic. And the mimic is just a local representation of a remote OPC server. Now, this is the name, this is the description it's going to use. I'll just make it shorter. You can, of course, use something, let's call it UA sample server. I can call it whatever I want. And I'll take this, just make it a little bit shorter. I'll give you an example of a longer one in a little bit. So there we go. I don't have to do this. It's just shorter. And I'll click OK. Now watch what happens. So now it brings in another server. And you can see it right here, UA sample server. And you can see that this really is what I just entered. And that little arrow, that little black arrow at the very top means that this is a mimic. Now, when we go back to OPC Quick Client, remember, OPC Quick Client only saw 3 OPC servers. But now, if I rebrowse my PC, here we go, there is my UA sample server. So what I'll do is I'll connect to it. And you notice that there were 4 OPC servers. And now I'm connecting to this UA server from OPC Quick Client. There we go. That's the UA sample server. Oh, forgot to close OPC Expert. I didn't forget. I don't have to close it. But I'll close it just to show you OPC Expert does not have to run. Now I'll open up Group, Add Items. So I'm doing a normal browse just like I would. I'm actually browsing an OPC UA server. And I'll get some items, add leaves, OK. And there we go. And the data types are actually coming in. We can see the data is good. And by the way, I'm on Mountain Time. My time is 11:17. So this really is today. If those of you that are thinking maybe this is recorded, it is not. So there you go. So now we're getting data from a UA server using a DA client. And what we're seeing is I'm looking at OPC Quick Client, which is this one right here. I'm going through this converter. Now, I'll show you that converter in just a moment. And there is the OPC server on this side. That's this one right here, which is sitting right over here. So that's where it's sitting. Okay, now what I want to show you is what happens when, if I close this OPC server, I'm obviously, in fact, I won't just close it, I will kill it in Task Manager. So let's go find it. There is the sample server right here. Watch what happens when I end the task. When I end the task, immediately the data stops coming in. So I'm not cheating. There's no magic mirror, nothing, no smoke and mirrors. So here you can see the quality is good until we detect that there's a bad connection. So now it says bad, last known value, and that's it. Until this server restarts. I'm specifically not running this server as a service, so I have complete control on when it starts. And you can see, because I killed it, there is the, just to the right of my cursor, as soon as I hover over it, it'll disappear. You probably recognize this as a little Windows bug, but that's okay. So here, we will start this up again. So I just started up server. There we go. And here it is. And you can see we're getting data again. Quick Client didn't have to do anything. Now, what I didn't show you yet is this one right here. And what you notice is it's actually running as a service. And we can see that right here. There it is. It's actually running OPC Expert Data Server. That's the Mimic running as the system account locally. So OPC Quick Client is making a local connection to a local OPC DA server, a Mimic, which is a representation of this server right here on the right-hand side. We'll get back to Task Manager later on. So once again, what we are seeing is size this. This is OPC Client is this one right here. We saw OPC Expert Data Server. That's this one here, running as a service, as a system account, and the OPC server is this one over here. You notice OPC Expert's not running here because this is a half tunnel. Okay, so what we've done now is we have a client, a DA client connecting to a UA server. And now let's go to a UA client connecting to a DA server. In this case, I'm going to use Unified Automation. Unified Automation makes OPC UA products, and they specifically make this UA Expert, which I will run. Now, this UA Expert does not connect. It's not able to connect to DA server. So on OPC 02, on my other computer, I will connect to a DA server on its own. UA Expert, they don't confuse UA Expert with OPC Expert. So here we go. I will, oh, don't forget, I need to run OPC Expert on this computer. So I'll run OPC Expert. Now I don't need to install anything, nothing at all. There we go. I'm just running it. That's it. By the way, if I, so if I browse, I don't have to browse, but I just want to show you that on this computer, I have several OPC servers. There is a Softing server that I'm going to connect to. You can see the Iconic server is over here. There's the UA sample server. In any case, back on my local PC, I will connect to OPC Expert on the remote PC. Now, there's the port that it's using, which is 57888. You can always change that. But if you want to open something in the firewall, there it is, port 57888, only one port to connect to any OPC server. And what happens here, we connect, we are going to get all the endpoints. There we go. Here are all the endpoints. I'll just choose one, click OK. We're going to be connecting right away, so it's establishing the connection. And watch what happens now. Now remember, this here, Unified Automation, is actually a UA client. So, work very well. I'm sitting right here, and I'm connecting to OPC Expert on this side. We haven't connected to this server yet. So, here we go. I'll open up Data Pool, OPC 02. So I'm looking at this, and sure enough, I see the same stuff as here. And here is the Softing server right there. So let's go in here, and we'll get some data. There we go. And we're getting data from a remote OPC DA server. This is coming from a remote OPC DA server. On its own, Unified Automation UA Expert cannot connect to a DA server, but through this converter, we're actually getting data from a DA server. So again, here's OPC. There's UA Expert connecting to OPC Expert, connecting to the Softing OPC DA server. So OPC Expert here is taking an OPC DA, sending out OPC UA. So it's taking a DA server and it becomes a UA server. It takes a UA client, and as far as this OPC server knows, it's got a local DA client. So there is the other half of the tunnel. So we see one tunnel, half tunnel here, the other half tunnel over here. And now we'll take a look at a full tunnel. So the full tunnel, it's an OPC DA server connecting to a DA server. Usually it's DA to DA. You could do UA to UA, but that's not typical. But in any case, what we're seeing here is we'll take DA, send out UA. On this side, we take in UA, send out DA. So we're converting on both sides. So to do that, here are my two PCs right here. So there's my quick line, still getting data from this server. But now I want to connect to the Softing OPC server. So I'll go ahead and try to connect to a server. Now remember, there are 4 OPC servers on my PC. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one only showed up once I put in the conversion. And of course, if I try to browse, I can't because the network is still not, the network connection is still not fixed. But remember, we have 4 of these right here. So now I want to bring in the server from the remote computer. So here's what we're going to do. We'll start up OPC Expert. I don't think it's running. No, it's not. So I'll run it. And here we go. So I'm running it. OPC Expert is running. Now I'll add OPC 02 because network browsing isn't working. There it is. And this time I'll say right click and import OPC servers. So I'm importing OPC servers from OPC 02. And sure enough, it's going to find my OPC servers from OPC 02. We've got OPC Expert running on that side. Oh, there it is. And it's showing me all these OPC servers. So there's a Softing server, and I'll just bring in the simulator server too. Why not? And we'll click OK. Now watch what happens. Before, you notice that there was one UA sample server. This is one that I changed. Here's another one. There's a Softing server that I'll connect to locally. And there is the UA sample server that we made earlier. And there's a simulator server. Notice that this is coming from OPC 02. It's coming from OPC 02. So there's an example. This one, this simulator OPC server is actually running on this PC. This one is a simulator server coming from OPC 02. This is a server that doesn't exist on this PC. It only exists on OPC 02. So this one is all done. Now, remember, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we'll browse again. And this time we see 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These two are the 2 new ones. So these 2 OPC servers are the 2 new ones. And you notice that they're coming in from OPC 02. So if I go, for example, to the Softing OPC server, now I'm making that remote connection and I'm actually tunneling. So there's the remote connection. It's made. I'll add a new group, new item. And let's go into maths again. Select them, add leaves, okay. And just like before, we're seeing these, we're seeing the data coming in. So there is the data coming in, just like we saw before in UA. So once again, what's happening here is there is the DA server running remotely. There's a local DA client, so Softing, Kepware, and it's using OPC Expert to make that connection. And OPC Expert is converting Softing from DA to UA, and then converting back from UA to DA, such that Quick Client sees a local OPC server. Azim, if you yes, you do understand correctly, it is a local. It's a UA connection. It's a protocol converter in this case. Now, let me just show you just a couple of the interesting things. So on this computer, for example, if I kill the simulator server, sorry, the Softing server, there's a Softing server running right here. If I kill it, so watch, now data update stopped, and I made it very slow so that you see what's going on. The quality goes from good, it was good, then OPC Expert realizes, oh no, I lost my connection. It says the the quality is bad. Here's the last known value. Over here, it will restart the OPC server. Look, it just restarted, and this OPC Quick Client is getting the data again, everything automatic. I didn't have to touch anything in Quick Client, and we're getting the data again. So if you have these connection problems, you can use the tunnel, as you see here. It will automatically reconnect and recover connections, even from client applications that aren't normally able to do this. So there we go. We've seen the half tunnel on the client side, the half tunnel on the server side, and the full tunnel on both sides, converting from DA to UA, UA to DA. Okay, so there you go. You have a brief overview. I'll leave it now for you guys to ask very specific questions. But let me just show the last few slides for the webinar, and then we'll get back to your questions that you were asking a little bit earlier on. So, troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is a very big thing, obviously, in OPC. You can download OPC Rescue or OPC Expert. Both of those are free downloads to help you troubleshoot your connections, troubleshoot your OPC DA, your UA connections, and see what's going on. They're both free and both meant for you to use and be able to get your communication working properly. Now, OPC Expert, very specifically, if you need it, you can do the bridging, server-to-server communication, trending, obvious. You can trend data, you can archive data, store it, you can tunnel, you can do the calculations, get Excel connections, and it supports OPC UA, DA, HA, alarms and conditions, and OPC Classic, DA, HDA, and alarms events. Specifically, in this case, we talked about tunneling and the automated troubleshooting. So we looked at tunneling in this case, the half tunnel and the full tunnel. Now, 3 more slides, this one and then 2 more. So what's going on here for hands-on learning? You want to learn more, come and earn your certified OPC professional designation. That's what one of the things we specialize in is OPC training, OPC Training Institute. You can attend one of our hands-on OPC workshops. You can configure DCOM and OPC UA, meaning you can learn how to configure DCOM, just to get it working, first of all, between two different computers. So first of all, just to get it working, maybe between two work groups, domains, work group to domains, two different domains, and so on. Get it working. Then how do we get it working securely? How do we make sure that we're working through firewalls? What ports do we need to open? What application exceptions do we need? How do I just use ports and not applications? How do I get around ephemeral ports or dynamic ports? How do I get around all this stuff? That's what we show you in the training when it comes to DCOM. So firewalls, user authentication, what accounts are needed, what accounts are not. Do people really need to be administrators or do they not? These are the questions that we answer. Do I really need to allow everyone and authenticated users and remote users and network users and distributed comm users and performance users and administrators and system? Do I really need to allow all of these and have these huge access control lists, or can I make it simpler? Can I make it more secure? How do I do that? What do I need to do? So that's what we talk about for DCOM. And then we do, in essence, the same thing for OPC UA. How do we get across firewalls? How do we do the certificates? How do we do the authentication? How do we do the authorization? How do you do the certificate, self-signed certificates, or domain signed, or certificate authority signed certificates? How do those work? What do we need to take care of? How does none work? So no security. What does it mean having no security, but then a username and password? Make up your mind. So we show you how to do all that. We get communication working. Then we break it to enable you to start troubleshooting your system so that you can make them secure, you can get communication working, and you can make it very, very secure, and you learn OPC best practices. Of course, you can download a whole bunch of free software. And again, at the end, you earn your certified OPC professional designation. Now, the workshops. We've got two formats in essence. Well, I suppose three. Number one, in all of our hands-on workshops, you get your own computer, which you configure yourself, and then you troubleshoot. These are not scripted. These are not recorded or pre-recorded, I should say. These are computers that you control. These are computers that you troubleshoot. In fact, you get two computers, one for the client and one for the server. So you configure the client, you configure the server, then we start to break connections. As I said earlier, these sessions are held all around the world. So even before COVID, we've been doing these for many, many, many years. So they're around Asia, all over Asia, Europe, all over North America. If you go to our website, you'll see the full schedule. Now, obviously, during COVID, you're not going to travel very far. Neither will we. So there are live remote sessions every month. Now, the format is very, very similar to here, which is the webinar for the theory, except that in the webinar, you actually talk and I can actually answer your questions, or whatever instructor is here. We all answer your questions directly. You can write the questions in as well. And then for the actual computers, you get two of your own computers. So you actually get your own computers. Again, they're not scripted. You get remote access. We provide you remote access to these computers. You get to work with other attendees in the class. Now, we've been doing these live remote classes for the past 12 years. So this is in our blood. We didn't just start this up because of COVID. We've been doing this for many years. So these classes are full of energy, a lot of action in the class, a lot of hands-on work goes on in these classes. In these classes, you can go to opcti.com and have a look at the schedule and the locations that are coming up. Folks, please keep the questions coming. Only one more slide left. So after the webinar, you'll get this email tomorrow. This email will contain a link to this webinar recording. So this webinar itself is being recorded right now, and you'll get a link to this webinar. You will also get a link to download OPC Expert if you want. You'll also get a link to very short and succinct videos showing you exactly how to do the full tunnel and the half tunnel. So it enables you to convert from OPC UA to DA and from OPC DA to UA, having a client and a server. So it doesn't really matter if you have an OPC UA client or an OPC UA server. You can get data to a DA client and a DA server. And you'll get a link to the registration for the next webinar titled OPC to SQL, OPC to SQL. So you can see how you can get OPC data directly into SQL Server. So you can store data. IT can very, very easily get at this data, and it's out of the hands of automation and into the hands of somebody else to do whatever reports you need. All right, this is the end of the formal part of the presentation. You will receive this email. I'll get back to the questions that you were asking, and we'll talk whatever questions you have. Now, I will also remind you that the questions you're asking, I will reply to them individually by email later on. So let's get to your questions. Okay, so first question is, what's the difference and similarities between this tunnel and other tunnels? Well, it's a good question, actually. Big difference, which is fairly obvious, is that this tunnel does not use any proprietary communication. Standards only. So OPC UA for the communication, which is what enables this one here to be a converter, and this one here to be a converter. So that's really the big thing. Of course, you get automated reconnections running as a service, pretty easy to use, and so on. But when you're looking at tunnels, take a look. Are they using standards-based communication? Are they using their own security, or are they using standards-based security? So take a look at that. Those are the questions to really ask. Rafael, hopefully that answers your question. Hazim. If I understand correctly, the low-level protocol in the tunnel is OPC UA. Yeah, I suppose you could say that. I don't know about low-level, but certainly OPC UA right here, OPC DA on the other side. But it's OPC DA, UA. They're really on the same level. So Azim, hopefully that answers the question. You're also asking, you're saying, I remember there's redundancy function inside OPC Expert. Yes, so there is redundancy. So remember that there is a redundancy function inside OPC Expert. That's correct, which uses one of two reachable OPC servers from the remote for the OPC client. Yes, that's the case. In case of a failure, the client don't notice a switch because the configured OPC server service handles the switch. Yes, that's correct. Yes, so point is, with this one here, or this one here, you can connect to not just one OPC server, but two OPC servers. So you can actually connect over here, this one, and to this one, if you will. If the primary fails, you will automatically move over to the standby, and that's already built into the tunnel. That's not a separate application. That's built right in. Everything is built right into a single tool. So yes, that's correct, and you will not lose any data. If you're using hot redundancy, there will be zero data loss. It is absolutely bumpless. There is zero data loss. Hopefully that explains that question. Dimitri, Bogdan, Gregory, and I'll get your questions right away. Dimitri, does OPC Expert support alias names? Yes, it is actually. And you're pointing out that sometimes it is necessary to change, shorten, or make more readable item names from original server. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, OPC Expert can have aliases. So sometimes we have very, very long names, and there might be 200 characters because of a path, and you need to make it 10. So yes, OPC Expert does do that, does have the alias for sure, Dimitri. Bogdan, half tunnel, server side is not too clear for me. Can we revisit quickly, please? Oh yeah, half tunnel on the server side. So what this does, Bogdan, what this is really doing is it's taking OPC DA locally and sending out OPC UA. So this client here actually sees a UA server. Remember, this is only supporting DA, so this one is converting from OPC DA to UA. And that's all that's really going on there. Keep in mind, you can also do OPC DA over the network. So you can do OPC DA over the network if that's what you want. So if you have a UA server here, this you can use this type of configuration, or even put this one locally over here. Bogdan, I hope that answers the question. Azim, good. Can this UA connection be used in place of a tunneler? Mike, yeah, absolutely. Except it is a tunneler, except that it's a standards-based tunneler. So you're no longer using anything proprietary. And yes, this works across domains. In fact, it doesn't care about the domains or the workgroups, so it will easily connect between on a domain number one, on two different domains, even though they don't have a domain trust. So you don't need to use domain accounts, or it will talk between a domain and a workgroup, or a workgroup and a domain, or two different workgroups. It will even talk across network address translation and across routers. It's actually quite interesting. It's very, very powerful. It can get you across all sorts of hurdles. And if you have specific network problems, just give us a shout and we will help you work through them to make sure that you get your connection. Okay, folks, I promised a 45-minute webinar. We are at 44 minutes, so we're just about done. So once again, just before we break, what I wanted to remind you is that we will send you an email containing links to this specific webinar, a link to download OPC Expert, a link to get very, very short and succinct videos. These are only a couple of minutes. No big fluff, just showing exactly what you need to do for just-in-time learning, in essence, where you can see how to set up a full tunnel or the half tunnel and convert from OPC DA to UA, UA to DA, and you'll get an invitation to the next webinar next month on OPC to SQL, so OPC to SQL Server. So everyone, this is the end of the webinar. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Please come to the next one. And until we see you again, good luck with your OPC projects. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye. Bogdan, you're welcome. Mike, you're welcome. Matt, you're welcome. Yeah, Matthew, of course, it can get across different domains and through a firewall. I'll reply by email, and I'll reply by email to everyone who asked a question that I didn't get to in this particular webinar. Mike, you're very welcome. Cruz, you're welcome. Eric, welcome. Very welcome. Yeah. Mary, yeah. Dimitri, you're welcome. Just in case you guys think that this is a recording, it is actually live, really live. Jim, you're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you coming.